Ever get that feeling when you're looking at a portrait and the eyes kind of follow you around the room?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
A bit spooky, right?
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, that's exactly the kind of magic we're diving into today.
Oh, cool.
The world of Anthony Van Dyck.
Okay.
He was a total master portraitist.
I love his work.
Yeah, and his work still has this power to, like, completely captivate us, even centuries later.
It really does.
To help guide us, we've got some really fascinating excerpts
Okay.
from the Stuff You Missed in History Class podcast.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited.
So yeah, get ready to uncover the story behind the brushstrokes.
Love that.
All right, so Van Dyck's life.
Huh.
It's this fascinating mix of artistic brilliance,
Right.
obviously ambition,
Uh-huh.
and a little touch of scandal,
Oh, fun.
all set against this backdrop of 17th century Europe.
Love it. Yeah.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning.
Okay.
Van Dyck. He was born in Antwerp in 1599.
Oh.
And just from what I've read, it sounds like he was pretty much destined for greatness right from the start.
I mean, that's what it seems like. He was recognized as a prodigy really early on.
Really?
Yeah. Started his formal training at like 10 years old, which is crazy.
Wow.
I know, there's a self-portrait he did at 15.
No way.
Yeah. And it's just astonishing. Like, it's so mature.
Oh, wow.
Really showcases his talent. And not just for capturing, the likeness, but also the emotion.
15.
I know.
I mean, at that age, I was still trying to figure out, like, how perspective worked,
Right.
let alone capturing the subtleties of human expression.
Totally.
So is he just, like, instantly embraced by the whole art world?
I mean, not exactly. So back
Mhm.
then, the art world was controlled by these guilds.
Okay.
They were super powerful, and they pretty much controlled everything.
What do you mean everything?
I mean, from like training to who got commissions.
Oh,
Yeah. And to become like an official master artist,
Yeah.
you had to follow a very strict set of rules and apprenticeships and all this stuff.
so almost like the art world's version of union or something.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
But Van Dyck, even as a teenager, had this undeniable talent.
Yeah.
And this ambition, and
Yeah.
he was just cranking out these incredible works, even defying the guild regulations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he gained recognition really quickly.
That's amazing. I mean, it makes you wonder if that early, I guess, defiance kind of shapes his artistic personality.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, was he always kind of pushing boundaries?
It really seems like it.
Yeah.
Even in his early portraits, you can see it.
Really?
Like the portrait of Cornelius Vandergist. Have you seen that one?
No, I haven't.
You should check it out. It demonstrates this incredible ability to capture details. Like, so lifelike,
Oh, wow.
especially in the eyes.
No.
It's almost photographic, which was a huge departure from the style back then.
Yeah, it was a lot more stylized, wasn't it?
Exactly. So it was really something new.
It sounds like he was challenging conventions, even then.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's this whole other thing with Peter Paul Rubens.
Right.
Yeah, which that's a whole chapter in itself.
It really is.
I mean, the dynamic between Van Dyck and Rubens is just fascinating for, like, everyone, art historians especially.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
So at just 18, Van Dyck became a student
Yeah.
and assistant to Rubens.
Oh, wow.
And Rubens was already, like, the titan of the Flemish art world.
Right. He was huge.
Yeah,
Talk about an intimidating mentor.
I know. I mean, Rubens was known for these dramatic, large-scale works and his use of color and his composition. So what was it like for Van Dyck to be working in the shadow of such a giant?
I mean, it must have been really formative.
Yeah.
Rubens definitely recognized Van Dyck's talent, though,
Yeah.
and took him under his wing, taught him his techniques,
Ah.
and even let him collaborate on some major projects.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so you can definitely see Rubens' influence in some of Van Dyck's early work, like the way he uses these vibrant color palettes and the dynamic compositions. It's all there.
But there's this whole idea that their relationship,
Yeah.
it was more complex than just, master and apprentice.
Right.
Some historians say there was a real rivalry between them, maybe even some jealousy on Rubens' part.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine, right? You're at the top of your game, you're the best,
Yeah.
and then suddenly this young, super talented artist comes along
Uh-huh.
who could potentially be even better than you.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
There's even a theory that Rubens intentionally pushed Van Dyck towards portraiture.
Really?
Yeah.
Why would he do that?
Well, because at the time, portraiture was seen as kind of less prestigious
Oh.
than like historical or religious painting.
So almost like he wanted to keep him in a lesser category
Yeah,
and
potentially.
protect his own position.
Exactly.
Wow.
But Whether it was deliberate or not,
Yeah.
Van Dyck's portraits ended up becoming his defining legacy.
Yeah, and these aren't just any portraits. Right.
Oh, no.
They went beyond just a simple likeness.
Definitely. He could capture the essence of his subjects, their personality,
Wow.
social standing, and he conveyed it all through these subtle nuances in their expression, their pose, even the way their clothing draped.
So he's mastering this technique.
Yeah.
He's navigating this really complex relationship with Rubens.
Uh-huh.
And on top of all of that, he's also got family drama back home.
Oh, right.
Tell me more about this lawsuit. Against his own family, it sounds pretty intense.
It was a whole thing, yeah. His family life wasn't exactly peaceful.
Really?
No, his father's business ventures, they all kind of failed.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and his personal life was a mess. And in the middle of all this, Van Dyck steps in and actually takes legal action to protect his siblings' inheritance.
Wow, so not just an artistic genius,
Right.
but also like a fiercely loyal and protective brother.
It's a good look.
It really adds another dimension to his character.
Totally.
So we've got this talented, ambitious, and maybe even a little rebellious young artist.
Yeah.
So where does his journey take him next? I'm guessing this isn't the end of the story.
Oh, definitely not.
Okay.
So in 1620, at just 21 years old,
Wow.
Van Dyck goes on his first trip to England.
Really?
Yeah, he was summoned by King James VI himself.
Okay. Talk about a career-defining moment.
Right.
So was he instantly welcomed with open arms?
He was, but the visit was super short.
What?
Yeah, he only stayed for like 4 months
Oh, wow.
and then went back to Antwerp.
Why? What happened?
Well, that's the thing. It's kind of a mystery.
Really?
Yeah, the reasons for his sudden departure are still a bit of a puzzle.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I'm picturing royal scandals,
Uh-huh.
court intrigue,
Right.
the whole bit. But he must have made some kind of impression, even if it was a short visit.
Oh, absolutely. The portraits he painted during that time, like one of the Earl of Arundel, were totally different.
How so?
Well, English portraiture at the time was very stiff and formal.
Yeah?
Very idealized.
Yeah, I could see that.
Van Dyck brought something completely new, this sense of realism
Okay.
and this dynamism that really stood out.
So he kind of shook things up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So then he goes back to Antwerp. But I have a feeling this isn't the end of his travels.
You're right about that.
Okay.
His next stop is Italy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and this becomes a huge turning point in his artistic development.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. He spends several years there,
Wow.
completely immerses himself in the works of the Italian masters.
Oh.
Michelangelo, Raphael, Titian, studies their techniques, absorbs their use of light and shadow, their mastery of composition.
I can almost picture him, in those dimly lit churches and museums,
Oh, yeah.
sketchbook in hand,
Yeah.
just completely enthralled by it all.
Yeah, totally.
So what were some of the specific aspects of Italian art that he really embraced?
Well, one of the biggest changes you see is in his use of full-body composition.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, instead of just doing head and shoulders, he starts depicting his subjects in their entirety, often set against these dramatic landscapes
Okay.
or architectural backgrounds.
I see.
So he's not just showing their physical attributes,
Yeah.
but also conveying their personality and their social status through their posture, their gestures, their surroundings.
That's almost like he's creating a whole story
Right.
around the person
Yeah,
instead of just capturing a still image.
exactly.
So how did his brushwork change during this time?
It became a lot looser, more fluid,
Okay.
creates this sense of movement and energy in his paintings. And he also starts experimenting with chiaroscuro.
Okay, remind me what that is again.
Oh, it's just this technique that uses strong contrasts of light and shadow.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
to create these dramatic effects and emphasize the three-dimensionality of his subjects.
Like Caravaggio.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That kind of dramatic lighting.
So it sounds like he's taking in everything he can
Yeah.
from the Italian masters, but then kind of filtering it through his own unique style, developing his own signature.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's during this time in Italy that he produces some of his most amazing portraits of children.
Oh, I love the way he captures like the innocence of childhood.
Right.
Yeah, almost like that little hint of mischief in their eyes.
That's so good.
So while he's in Italy, enjoying the sun and all this artistic inspiration, what's going on back home in Antwerp?
Well, eventually he does go back,
Okay.
and he's welcomed back as like a huge celebrity.
Yeah.
Even becomes the court painter to Archduchess Isabella.
Wow.
But even with all this success, there's still family drama.
Oh, no, what, Nat?
More legal battles over the inheritance, the Van Dykes and their court cases.
Ever a dull moment?
Seriously.
It makes you wonder if all that personal stuff fueled his artistic drive.
Yeah.
Or if it was just a distraction he had to deal with.
Who knows?
And what about Rubens? What's going on with their relationship at this point? Are they still rivals?
Well, it does seem like things had cooled down between them.
Yeah.
Maybe it was jealousy, maybe competition, maybe they just drifted apart as they got more successful.
Uh-huh.
Some historians even think they were never that close to begin with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe it was mostly professional.
So not a dramatic falling out, just kind of a natural progression
Pretty much.
as their careers took different paths?
Exactly.
And speaking of individual visions, during this time back in Antwerp, Van Dyck starts working on this really cool project.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It's a series of engraved portraits
Oh, wow.
called iconography.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it basically becomes this visual record of Antwerp society.
Yeah.
Captures all these prominent figures from every walk of life.
Oh, wow. I'd love to see that.
Yeah, I mean, imagine having your portrait etched for, like, all time by one of the greatest artists ever.
Right. What a status symbol.
Huh, totally. And it's also an incredible historical resource.
Oh, for sure.
You get a real glimpse into the faces and personalities of 17th century Antwerp.
Yeah.
But even with all this success in Antwerp, I have a feeling he's not done with his travels yet.
You know Van Dyck.
I do. I think the allure of London is calling him back across the channel.
You'd be right about that.
All right, I'm on the edge of my seat. Let's take a quick pause and then dive into this pivotal period in Van Dyck's life.
So as we were saying, Van Dyck heads back to London in 1632.
Okay.
But this time, it wasn't a quick visit.
It was a real deal.
It was. He got a royal welcome, a royal appointment, actually.
Wow. Okay, so what changed in those 10 years between that first short trip and this grand return?
Well, for one, new king, Charles I.
Oh, right.
And Charles I loved art.
Uh-huh.
He was a huge patron of the arts. And he saw in Van Dyck the perfect artist to capture not just his image, but the image of the whole court.
But this wasn't just like a vanity project, was it?
No, definitely not.
I mean, these portraits, they must have had a deeper meaning, a purpose.
Exactly. You got to remember the political situation at the time.
Yeah.
Charles I was dealing with a lot of challenges.
Like what?
Well, England was on the verge of civil war, and he needed to project a very specific image.
What kind of image?
Strength, stability, divine right to rule, all of that.
And he saw art as a way to do that.
Exactly. Pretty smart, actually.
It is, yeah.
And Van Dyck was a master at creating these idealized but still somehow believable portrayals of power.
Oh, it's interesting.
Yeah. If you look at his portraits of Charles I, the way he depicts him, these elegant poses, often on horseback or with these symbols of power, but there's also this sensitivity.
Really?
Yeah, and the way he captures Charles's features, a kind of vulnerability that makes him seem more human, more relatable.
So he's striking this balance between, like, majesty and approachability.
Exactly.
Which is pretty clever, I mean, from a propaganda perspective.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Van Dyck understood that if you want to win people over, you can't just be powerful, right?
Right.
You have to be relatable, too.
Totally.
And he achieved that through his art.
He did.
It makes you wonder, though, did Van Dyck himself have any strong political leanings?
Good question.
Or was he just focused on creating beautiful, powerful art regardless of the message?
That's something historians still debate.
Really?
Yeah. Some think he was a total monarchist. Others think he was more practical, just using his skills to advance his career and secure his position in the court.
So we may never know for sure.
Maybe not.
But it's fascinating how art and politics can be so intertwined.
Definitely.
So while he's busy painting anyone in English society, what's going on in his own life, we've heard hints about some romantic entanglements.
Well, actually, he gets married in 1640.
Oh, to who?
Mary Ruthven.
Okay, and who's she?
A lady in waiting to the Queen, Henrietta Maria.
Okay. You said actually he gets married.
Uh-huh.
Is there something surprising about that?
Well, up until this point, Van Dyck had a bit of a reputation.
Oh, what kind of reputation?
Let's just say he was known to be a bit of a heartbreaker. Linked to several women throughout his travels. Even fathered a child outside of marriage.
So this marriage, kind of out of the blue.
It seemed that way to some people.
Yeah.
There was a lot of talk about whether it was a strategic move, to solidify his position.
Right.
But it sounds like they were actually happy together.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
And they had a daughter together, right?
They did. A little girl named Justiniana, born just a few months before a big loss in Van Dyck's life.
Oh, you're talking about Rubens.
I am.
That must have been hard for him, even if they weren't super close anymore.
Yeah, I mean, Rubens was more than just a mentor.
Yeah.
He was a huge influence on Van Dyck.
Yeah.
His death really marked the end of an era.
And around the same time, Van Dyck's own health starts to fail.
Sadly, yes.
What happened?
He developed this tremor in his hand, which for a painter, especially someone known for detail and precision, it was devastating.
I can't imagine how frustrating that must have been.
Yeah, being at the top of your game and then suddenly having this physical limitation, that could take it all away.
Scary.
Yeah, he tried everything to find a cure.
Really?
Oh yeah, best doctors, different remedies.
Mm-hmm.
Charles I even offered a reward to anyone who could help him.
Wow, so he was really highly regarded in the court.
He was.
But it sounded like none of it worked.
Sadly not. The tremor persisted. His health kept getting worse.
Oh, no.
And then another twist.
Hello.
Remember how we talked about Van Dyck's romantic past?
Yeah.
Well, turns out he had another daughter.
What?
Yeah, Maria Theresa, born back in Antwerp in 1622.
So he kept this secret for almost 20 years.
He did.
And his wife, did she know?
We don't know for sure. There's no record of it.
Wow, that's a lot to unpack.
It is.
Makes you think about the complexities of his life, the secrets people keep. It adds another layer to his portraits, doesn't it?
Definitely.
Knowing there were all these things going on behind those carefully constructed images.
Yeah, the drama, the maybe heartache.
And sadly, Van Dyck's own story was coming to an end.
It was.
Despite his efforts, his health continued to worsen. So what happens to the great Anthony Van Dyck? So Van Dyck's health is declining, and then this revelation about another daughter really makes you think about the man behind the masterpieces.
It does, doesn't it? And you know, even today, there's still so much we don't know about Van Dyck.
Oh, really? Like what?
Well, for one, we don't actually know for sure how many paintings he created.
Really? I would have thought with someone so famous, we'd have a pretty clear record.
You'd think so, right?
Yeah.
But art history, it's not always that straightforward.
Okay, so why is that? What makes it so difficult?
Well, remember he had a huge studio.
Right, with tons of assistants.
Exactly.
Mm.
And they would help with different parts of the painting process, sometimes even copying his style for less important commissions.
Oh, so how can you tell which paintings are actually by Van Dyck?
It takes a lot of careful examination.
What are you looking for?
You have to look at the brushstrokes, the composition, the way light and shadow are used. It's all about those tiny details.
Wow, so it's almost like detective work.
Pretty much.
And sometimes there are even those, what are they called? The pentimenti?
Yes. Those ghostly traces of earlier brushstrokes, the changes he made along the way.
It's amazing to think that centuries later, we can still see those and learn something about his process.
I know, it's incredible.
And you said there are still paintings being discovered and attributed to him.
All the time.
Wow. Can you give me an example?
Yeah, just a few years ago, there was this portrait. Everyone thought it was by a lesser-known artist.
Uh-huh.
But then they took a closer look, and it turned out to be a genuine Van Dyck.
Wow, that's like finding buried treasure.
It really is. And each new discovery, it adds to our understanding of him, his evolution as an artist,
Yeah.
his influence on other artists.
Speaking of influence, we've talked about Gainsborough and Reynolds, but what was it about Van Dyck's style that was so impactful? Why did it resonate so much?
Well, he had this unique blend of realism and elegance that no one else could quite capture. His portraits, they don't just show you what someone looked like. They show you their personality, their inner life.
You said he made them look powerful, but also approachable.
Exactly.
That sounds almost contradictory.
It was a revolutionary approach at the time. It's what made him stand out.
So how did he do that? How did he achieve that balance?
Well, it was a combination of technical skill and psychological insight.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. I mean, he understood composition. He knew how to use poses, gestures, even objects to tell you something about the person.
Yeah.
And the way he used light, incredible. Highlighting features, creating drama, setting a mood.
I've always loved the eyes in his portraits, the way he painted them.
Oh, yeah. He was a master at capturing the soul through the eyes.
There's always something there, a spark, Makes you feel like the person is really looking back at you.
That's exactly it.
And he wasn't afraid to experiment with poses, to break with tradition.
Totally. Moving away from that stiff formality
Yeah.
and adding movement, dynamism.
And we can't forget about his portraits of Charles I.
Right. Using art as propaganda.
Exactly. He understood how to use his art to tell a story, to shape perception.
He did, and it wasn't just for kings.
Right? He did it for merchants, for anyone who wanted to project a certain image.
He knew how to create a narrative to serve the interests of his subject.
It's a good reminder that art is always connected to the world around it.
Oh, absolutely. The social, the political, the cultural, it all plays a part.
And Van Dyck, despite his short life, he navigated it all with incredible skill
He did.
and left behind this amazing legacy.
That's still inspiring people today.
Yeah. And even though we know so much, there are still these unanswered questions that keep us wanting to learn more. What would you say is the biggest mystery surrounding Van Dyck?
That's tough. But for me, it's his motivation, What drove him? Was it fame, fortune?
Or something more?
Right. Was it this burning passion to capture the essence of humanity, to create something that would last?
Guess it's something we each have to ponder for ourselves.
Exactly. And that's what makes art so powerful, isn't it? It invites us to think, to interpret, to find our own meaning.
Well said. So for our listeners out there, we encourage you to go see Van Dyck's work for yourselves.
You won't regret it.
Take a closer look. Notice the details, the way he uses light, the expressions.
Maybe you'll even discover something new.
Yeah, maybe you'll find the next hidden gem in his vast collection.
Happy hunting.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through the world of Anthony Van Dyck. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.